All right, just about finished up this 73-ish Bassman 50. So new resistors, new capacitors in the filter section, including the 220K droppers here, the bleeders across the series caps. As I've shown before, all the leads are tucked underneath. Good mechanical support. Everything's very neat. Silicone beneath each capacitor. This is rock solid. Pretty much just setting the clock back to 1972, 1973. Tightened up all the hardware, holding the various transformers in place. New grounded power cable going to the hot and neutral correctly. And the hot goes to the innermost connection of the fuse holder, then to the switch, and then to the primary. The neutral goes to the other primary. The ground is longer than the hot and neutral, going directly to chassis ground there, as opposed to the very, very loose connection that was mounted to the transformer bolt. On this 6L6 socket, the old 470 ohm 1 watt was burned and in fact was shattered in half. Every tech's seen that. So both of them have new 3 watt 470 ohm resistors. And I like to mount them here just away from the heat rising from the tube. And the original grid stoppers still measure 1.5K, are still working just fine. The polarity death cap has been removed. This switch is only here used to connect the neutral here to the primary. It's just a nice anchor point. There's no path between here and here, which is good because this switch is completely shot. You know, it's a broken switch, but it's not doing anything in the circuit. So it's just being used as a big, ugly looking terminal block at this point. I redid the phase inverter because the phase inverter in the stock Bassman 50 from this era is a bit noisy. So this is more similar to the AB763, though it does have the 330Ks and the 47Ks versus the 1 megs and the 82K, 100K, and it has 220Ks here for the bias leak resistors. And I changed the input cap to a 3.3 nanofarad from the 10 nanofarad, so the amp does not get flubby. And because I made these changes, which introduced negative feedback, I reversed the green and black wires at the output jacks. Here on the bias and rectification board, like I've shown in so many amps, I have the artificial center tap created for the heater supply. It does not have a dedicated heater center tap wire. New 47 microfarad Vishay here. New, in this case, 1K 2 watt Vishay resistor here. I measured all the old diodes and they all measure absolutely fine. And this is a different type than the one found in the early 60s. The one in the early mid 60s I tend to replace on site. These tend to last and, they look pretty and they're working just fine, so they can stay. And you can see that not only have I redone all the chassis grounds like this, because this was very, very loose. In fact, the transformer was about a 32nd of an inch away from the surface of the chassis because this bolt had gotten so loose. So that was a terrible ground. But I've redone the bias wiring to be like, it still has the cap like it had before, but instead of going ground here, I'm just going to the shell of the pot. And this is a 22 microfarad. I've shown this in others from the wiper. I've shown this in other videos. This really gets the last of the hum out of the power supply. As the amp came in, it had huge rings of flux surrounding each eyelet, and the flux in general was overlapping with each other. And over time, that flux, because it is a sticky rosin-like substance, traps particles in the air, and so you can actually have conductive paths build through the dirty, polluted flux from this eyelet to this eyelet, from this eyelet to this eyelet, et cetera, which is, to use a technical term, really bad. So I've removed all the flux for the entire board, which is very nice. You can see it's got Vishay cathode bypass caps here. Here, as it came in, it had a non-trustworthy tantalum. We went with a Vishay electrolytic, much better choice. In stock form, the Bassman 50 has got a 500 picofarad cap across the plate here for the normal channel and a 10 nanofarad, which is huge, across this plate for the base channel. I took out the 10 nanofarad, took out the 500 picofarad, put the 500 picofarad here, just take some of the upper air and a little bit of noise out of the base channel, and this really lets the normal channel breathe. Much like on the AB165s, I moved this plate resistor from this connection to this connection because they are doing a DC mix here, and in stock form, they are mixing DC from different filter nodes together, which undoes the filtering benefits. So by moving them to the same B+ node, and you can keep the DC mixer, but really lower the noise floor. And it works. Science, man. All the original pots and jacks and switches are just fine. They need a little bit of a cleaning, but that's it. And you can see here there's 1 meg from this cap connection to ground. You can also do it at the switch. That depops that switch. Otherwise, you get a big thud every time you use it, which is not that nice. The Softex that the amp came in with, 606s, this one had a whole bunch of material sputtered on the inside of the glass. It used to be part of the plate. And taking it out, putting on the bench and stuff, it's fallen off and it's all settled down into the tube. I can't show you anymore, but it is a bad tube. And that is the one that was here where that screen grid resistor had burned. So into the trash they go. Right now, I've got a pair of JJs. These are test tubes. I'll order some good 6L6s for this and do the final bias at that point. But it is close enough now to show you how it's sounding. And volume, treble, bass. Volume, treble, bass. We'll get to this channel. We'll go to the normal channel first with the Strat. Bright switch off. Real nice balanced sound. What you expect. It's a Fender normal channel. For people out there with a lot of pedals, this is the quintessential pedal platform. You can also use the normal channel for bass. And it's shaking something in the room behind the cab. Hopefully that doesn't come through in the mic too much. And I forgot the line because I was distracted by the vibrations, making sure it wasn't my speaker. But that's just pretty much setting this flat. Remember that the Alembic FX-1 bass preamp, which is a very expensive thing coveted by many bassists over the decades, is a Fender normal channel. They increased the cathode bypass value, on the capacitors to a crazy 150 microfarad. It's flat down to like 0 hertz, something like that. You don't need that. You can just use a standard Fender like this. Roll the tone off. You can hear it kind of woof out as I go a little bit lower. You just gotta dial it into your speakers. This is a Squire bass. It's a little bit wolfy around here. But, it's a great channel for bass and guitar. Let's go over to the bass channel, though, shall we? Sticking with the bass at first. Deep switch down, which is the more useful general sound. This channel's got more mids than the normal channel. Tone stack is very different on this Bassman 50 than it is on the AB165. I do prefer the sound of the bass channel for bass with the AB165. This later variant, it's a little bit too mid-rangey for a lot of styles, but if you're a Jocko or Getty guy, this is not a bad place to start. If you do the deep switch up, which is going to take away a lot of the lower mids. But if I switch to guitar, the cut is in the place where the guitar doesn't have any, the guitar's low end is affected, but it doesn't have that sub octave on the guitar. And that's really nice if you're playing with like an overdrive pedal or something, because you can get a very non-woofy low end response. See, this just turns into an upper mids kind of thing. And because this cuts out the lower mids so much on a guitar, it's carving out the lower mids and the bass. On a bass guitar, it's just carving out the lower mids. So if you were to be using this with some overdrive pedals, this won't flub out as much. Of course, you can also turn that off, go back to more sane settings, and have a different color. So for general playing, I think deep switch down. This channel becomes very much like this channel with some subtle variation. Still a bit more mid-rangey. Deep switch up though, and this thing becomes a very specialty purpose kind of thing. But it's not just for bass, man.